All right, time for some show and tell, which is basically an unboxing, but without the box, although this one here is kind of a box. Uh, or what the replay gamer calls grand opening. I like that title too. I'll start off with this one. This is off to the side here. I got a line cutter. This is from a Korean dollar store. It was $3. And sure, I could get a much better line cutter for, I don't know, 25, 30, 40, $50. And it would definitely outlast this one. This is the second one like it that I've gotten. But I think, again, for $3, I think I got a lot of use out of the other one. And for anybody who wants to tell me that, oh, a $30 one will last longer, yeah, it won't last longer than 10 of them. So anyway, I'm content with that. And yeah, so I finished the 68 replay. Normally when I finish a project with a game, and it doesn't really matter what game it is, I tend to take a break and focus on some other things. And there are other things actually right now that I want to focus on in terms of, tabletop hockey games, others and mine. But I guess maybe just because the way that I have it set up, the Stanley Cup is going to roll right into the off-season draft. And so I've posted protected list for all six teams, for 68 going into 69. The way that I do it is after 1968, based on mainly on their performance, if not solely from the 68 season. I use that as the main criterion for protecting the players for each of the six teams. And then in the 69 draft, it's going to be a combination of the players. It's going to be eight rounds, and it will be comprised of players left over who were unprotected and also new prospects that emerged in 1969 in the developmental / stay busy National Hockey League. That's where these players go to stay busy before coming over to the elitist of the elite, that being the Eternal Six Hockey League. So they didn't have any sticker paper at the print shop that I go to. They had it there before. They didn't have it today, so I had to go and get my own. And from that sticker paper, and of course they're upside down, I got logos printed. These ones are a little less glossy, but I think I don't know. I'm hoping anyway that these will pop a little better on their cards. I'm trying to remember actually. I might have gotten them a little smaller this time, so they actually fit the player cards a little better. They are all the same size, technically, the same size of file, even though the Boston Bruins one looks larger. So there is that. Just the one page, though, and then I'll have to try to remember that I have these pages for the next time I need to have some stickers printed. And, of course, this will be the main thing. There's a couple of things in here. Yes, so one, I guess, is in behind. So I also I think I streamlined them a little bit this time. I think they'll be a little smaller. I'm going to have those on the rink. I'm going to keep the same rink for 69. And I just decided this time to have the city name above the logo instead of below it. So I'll cut those out, and those will display on the rink as well. So there is that. And then, of course, there is the 69 season, the 68-69 NHL season there. And the goaltenders are up front. I'm not going to talk, obviously, about each and every individual player. I think I was charged for color prints for these, so the gray is popping a little nicer than normally I would have just paid for black and white, but they told me the amount and they'd already printed it. So they've also given me discounts at other times, so I think it all works out in the end. They're and you can tell actually if you look at the protected list for the teams that I didn't actually look ahead to these cards because some of the guys that I would have protected for the teams in 68 had some pretty bad cards in 69. So, but these are still the classic look Hockey Bones cards from 1970 or 71 onward. I have the current cards. So, So I have a lot of cutting ahead of me, which means a lot of listening to other tabletop sports on YouTube. It'll be a great opportunity to do that. There's Bobby Orr's card. And of course, now that I'm looking for them, I don't see some prospects. Ron Murphy might actually be drafted this time. He just barely didn't make it into the draft for 68. But there definitely are some players, some names that didn't play in 68 that are going to go pretty high in 69. I think probably what it is I'm not to the expansion teams yet, and that's why I've yet to see them. Jim Pappen, probably that's going to look good in hindsight for Chicago, having protected him. Vic Hadfield is obviously now emerging. And with my whole storyline, I'm assuming that New York kind of knew what they had. Larry Jeffrey actually had a good defensive season toward the end of his career. And a guy like J.G. Gendron, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name okay, he came back to the National Hockey League after a few years away from it. Ron Stewart, they're a pretty good defensive player as well in this one. So, and there's Armstrong. Jim Dory, some defensemen emerge. I've already set aside actually a list of, because the draft's going to be 48 players. So I've set aside 9 goaltenders, 19 defensemen. Like, having gone through all of these cards, just looking at them on the computer, I've set aside 31 forwards, 19 defense, and 9 goalies. So that's a list of 59. And probably most, if not all, of the 48 players that will be drafted will come from that list of 59. Palat went to Toronto in that final season, and Palat, I didn't protect him for Chicago because Chicago did badly in the standings. Whether or not a team protected a veteran around Palat's age would have actually depended on how well they fared in the standings for the 68 mini What If replay. So yeah, there's Norm Ullman. Marcel Pronovost at this point, I think, was in his 40s, and I'm not seeing the great cards yet. There's Delvecchio with his +3 pass bonus this time. And Mahovlich there with 49 goals, just one shy of 50. Gary Unger's emerging as a prospect. Unger will probably, again, he played 76 games. I was tempted actually to put him on a team in 68, but he just hadn't really played enough games. A loose guideline for this is, I'm going to say, maybe 30, basically about half the season, 35, 40 games at least for the players. I don't think I'm going to make any exceptions to that. Unless maybe a guy that I know that was a veteran that was injured this season. I'm going to be very careful to make exceptions to things like that. And goaltenders as well. Looking at a minimum of 20 games, unless it's a goaltender who's already been protected by his team, and then I'll give that goalie a pass. Like, I'm not sure if I think Johnny Bauer might have played 20 games exactly. Maybe not even, though. He obviously at this point he was 43, 44 years old. Still decent, still good numbers. It's probably there he is, 20 games. So here I am holding it, but I'm actually looking away from the card and going on memory. He played 20 games exactly. Remains to be seen if the likes of Gamble and Favell will be able to roll well in 69 as they did in 68. Their cards are not as encouraging. This is a guy who I think is going to go pretty early in the draft, Danny Grant. Who will he go to? It's probably going to depend on which team gets lucky and comes up first on the wheel. Because Danny Grant, he can play either wing. He scored 34 goals, has a pass bonus, and his defense is not terrible. And he puts it on the net a fair bit as well. In addition to having good ranges, good shooting range there. So I don't anticipate Danny Grant or former Montreal Canadian player Claude LaRose, for that matter, falling all that far. Ray Cullen looks like he's played like somebody intent on proving that Boston should have protected him. So anyway, this is all in my geeky mind's eye. There are a few more prospects down and behind there as well. Hampson, who was protected by Boston, as was Hickey. And there's Bert Marshall, who'll be playing for Toronto. Bob Dillabow, obviously, looking at a card like his, it becomes pretty obvious that I wasn't looking ahead to his card when I protected him for Boston. Going on 68 results, he and Cullen both did well for Boston, but Dillabow was the better defensive forward, at least then, for Boston. So, and speaking of Boston, Dornhofer, Carol Vadonay, there's probably another player who will not fall far in the draft, probably be scooped up. And Gendron mentioned earlier now that he's back in the NHL. So, yeah, these are the cards. And I mean, I never look forward to cutting. I never get too excited about cutting. But again, it is an opportunity to listen to some other hockey. Hockey, hopefully hockey, tabletop hockey, but I'll give some other sports a listen as well. I'm trying to think if there's any tabletop hockey that I have to listen to the rest of Dave's Appa game before I go and read about it on Delphi and have it spoiled for me. Charlie Burns, he's quite old, but again, his card actually looked pretty good in 68. I almost had him drafted in 68, and this one I think his offensive numbers have improved. So despite his age, a team will probably take a flyer on him for a season. And Al Arbour, I mean, he was cut by Montreal, but he and Chicago is going to be thanking themselves for protecting Bears. And Montreal, on the other hand, again, even as a Habs fan, you can tell that I really tried not to look ahead. Crispy's not looking too good in 69, whereas Al Arbour is, despite his age. So, again, I'm treating the National Hockey League as a developmental / stay busy. It's kind of like a CHL or USHL combined with the AHL. And this is where the players play for the bulk of the season, and then they they travel over to my alternate universe. Doug Harvey's back. I think Harvey, again, maybe not early, but he'll be drafted at some point. Camille Henry's going to be on the bubble. It remains to be seen. You could see Henry in a lineup for injury relief, although now I'm doing lineups of 24 instead of 21 like I did originally with the initial season. So some of these players will be protected. And Leo Boivin as well still, I mean, he was pushing 40 at this point, I think 38 or 39. I'll have to go and double check. I think he was born in 31, so that would make him 38, and still a good defenseman in 69. So the Rangers had already protected one elderly statesman in Harry Howell, and I thought, given his legacy there, that he would be the one that I'd opt for. But if Boivin is the BPA when he comes up in the draft, the Rangers, like all other teams, have some blue line positions to fill. So, and I have to be careful as well, because I noticed that Sutherland is carded twice. His 12 games for Philadelphia, I guess it would have been. His stats, his numbers are ridiculous, and so I'll have to omit cards like that where a player only played about 12 games. And Mike McMahon Jr. is a reminder to you and me that when I made the protected list for Montreal, that I just didn't. I wasn't looking ahead. I was trying to think again, what if this were real, and Montreal might have seen something in McMahon Jr. that evidently in 69 they won't be. So he might have a bad camp and be cut at some point. Anyway, so that is the 69 season, and I thought before I cut all of those out, I would just show them off whole in the pages like that. I printed them at 90%. These are all 90% actual size. I just have small hands. So, yeah. Anyway, and of course, with the stickers that I showed earlier, I'm going to, once the players are drafted, I'm going to put their team sticker on their card. So again, that's something that, I'm doing myself and attaching them manually. And so if there are any issues with NHL, copyright, anything like that, whatever, I'm the one you come after, not PT Games or anything like that. So, all right. Anyway, but to get on with my day, carry on with it. So I'll try not to have, spill or even have the sweat on the cards when I say cheers, thanks, and bye for now.